As Windows gradually conquered the world of computer operating systems over each release, others looked upon the solidification of this monopoly with a range of opinions and intent. Some could poke fun at various aspects of it and remain largely sensible and pragmatic. Others got downright salty and bitter. The rivalry and ire between particular Mac and PC users reached a level that didn't really subside until Apple's product line had diversed into non-computer electronics. And so I thought today, on YesterYear's Mac Games, I'd take a look at some of the shareware and freeware titles that came about as a result of Microsoft's domination. Now, this isn't a complete list of things out there of this nature. There will be more that I'm not aware of. There's some entertainment in these, and one absolute abomination that I'll hold till the end. But keep in mind that these are small projects made in people's spare times that were distributed through the internet and magazine cover discs. So they're not particularly complex. Still interesting though. So let's start with smashing Windows. This game started off paid, but was eventually made freeware by its author, Richard Bannister. Richard made quite a few games for the classic macOS before turning his attention to emulators. Aside from a few sprite and background choices, it is pretty vanilla Space Invaders, which isn't a bad thing. Later waves, however, need more power than my 630 here is able to give it. The frame rate dips dramatically until some of the windows are smashed. The other Space Invaders title that I found was Alien Invaders. This one has a few additional mechanics, such as a defensive wall of System 7 extensions, and the Windows recycle bin that flies across the top and empties its contents. The little Mac that is controlled with the mouse fires the rainbow Apple logo, and when hit, plays one of the sillier death chimes from 90s Macs, which indicated a major hardware failure. Upon losing, the game puts up a mock splash screen of a Windows desktop to insinuate that your Mac has been converted. This got me thinking actually. The irony of all these games is that no matter how hard a player tries to fight Windows, they will eventually lose regardless. On to something else then. Windows 3.1 is a rather simple parody application that dishes the user a series of error messages when they try to open a Windows application. Minesweeper works though, which is pretty sweet. So I guess this Windows 3.1 application does serve a purpose. Another parody application is Clickle-Me Billmo. And I'm not sure what sort of colour mode is being run, but I've never seen my desktop do this before.
Let's have a Billmo party, but no Elmo users.
This one pokes fun at Microsoft's anti-competitive behaviour and general dominance in their markets.
Billmo wants to play Monopoly. Let's use real money.
Interaction is limited to clicking on the mock doll to trigger the jokes.
Billmo is hug and play compatible with your other toys. It's true.
And it's kind of creepy. Right, next up is a couple of different interpretations of XBill. As far as I'm aware, this one originated on Unix systems in 1994. The Mac port, titled MacBill, came about in 2002 and is OS X only. The game sees little Bill Gates figures pile in from the sides and attempt to remove whatever OS is on the computers and replace it with Windows. Should an infected machine be connected to a network, it will then transmit the payload to whatever's on the other end. Clicking on the bills dispose of them in a rather messy fashion, while the transmissions across the network cables can be put out with this bucket of water. Difficulty slowly increases, with more bills and more cables, and the player can also increase the playing field size for a bigger game. I tried this, but unfortunately the frame rate eventually started to fall with lots of little bills running around, making it very difficult to register any hits. The concept of XBill was revisited in XGates, which takes the same concept and changes a few of the variables. A jobs figure will occasionally show up to fix a computer, the Department of Justice can distract a Gates for a bit, and the computers vary in number. It looks only slightly bloodier during gameplay, but the menus go somewhat beyond the realms of good taste.
Get ready to kill some Bill.
Both these Bill killers need a mouse. My first attempt at XGate was on a trackpad and I got nowhere, but once properly equipped, I found that trying to keep on top of the bills got pretty tense, requiring no small amount of dexterity. So, unnecessary illustrations aside, this one's pretty decent. A step down in angriness now. Super MacMan II is a Pac-Man clone, with a compact Mac as the playable dot muncher. The ghosts are IBM machines, depicted in the original version's box art as walking IBM 5150s. The game seems to play alright mechanically, the bonus items are there, and a single rainbow apple in each level lets the player turn the PCs to ash. But unfortunately, it isn't all that fun, because it's far too easy. Although it's got a level editor, so that's nice I suppose. Let's finish up with something that really shouldn't have seen the light of day. So there was this tool for classic macOS called ResEdit, which gave access to most of the assets of a game and enabled easy editing by just about anyone who cared to try. One that got the asset flipping treatment a few times was Barney Carnage. So the first clue then, that WinKiller was based off this, is the game's icon, which wasn't changed. Barney Carnage and its body snatchers are simple clickers. Barneys fly around the screen and can be clicked to inflict death. It's not really all that good, but it was simple to grasp, made as a joke, and allowed those that despised Barney, which I think was probably everyone over the age of 7, to take a bit of frustration out on him. The game files were easy to switch out for other things, so Attack of the Mamas, or Mamas, whatever, followed later on, with the sprites and sounds switched out for these things. The creator of this version, David Derwin, shared some information about this one in the game's page of the Macintosh Garden that made interesting reading. It is overall a much better effort than the following. WinKiller's work of art title screen more or less sets you up for the breathtaking visual fidelity that can be expected from the rest of this experience, and I can only guess that it was made on an older build of Barney Carnage, which doesn't work great with macOS 7.6 and is unable to clear pixels when the game is done with it. Either that, or the game's editor managed to break whatever does this with their modifications. Either way, the game screen is a complete mess, occasionally broken up with some painful fanboy bilge masquerading as a level description. By stage 4, ideas for narrative have been exhausted, incorrectly stating that it's the last level, before then progressing onto another stage where the globe fires lasers at windows invading Earth. Oh, and you may have noticed, they still sound like Barney. One other bug I found is what it does to the Apple menu. I'm going to guess that the game's editor, Tim Card, was probably a youngster when he did this, as most people do grow out of this sort of thing eventually. I know that a younger me would have found all of these programs hilarious, as I was very anti-Windows pro-Macintosh at that age. Nowadays I rock Linux for most things, so some sense was finally acquired. Nevertheless, that concludes this brief romp through these games that placed Microsoft and Mr. Gates as the antagonist. It's an odd bunch, but I do feel that they are culturally significant, accurately representing the animosity expressed at Microsoft's success through the 90s. For further retrospectives on Macintosh shareware, freeware, and retail games, check out the rest of my channel. Otherwise, pop your thoughts in the comments, and consider sharing the video if you thought it was any good. I'd love to see a bit more growth. Thanks ever so much for watching, and see you next time.